Hello, welcome back to module 2 of corporate strategy. So, in this module we have been discussing about external analysis. In the previous sessions we have discussed about scanning the environment, industry analysis, competitive analysis. So, in this session we will focus upon Michael E. Porter's 5 forces model. So, before we start, so let us understand the SCP model. Way back in 1930s, a group of economists began developing an approach for understanding the relationship among a firm's environment, its behavior and performance. The original objective of this work was to describe conditions under which competition in an industry would not develop. So, understanding when competition was not developing in an industry assisted government regulators in identifying industries where competition enhancing regulations should be implemented. So, this model was developed based on the economists' idea where they wanted to increase the competition in industry, because as we all understand and know that competition is good for all the stakeholders. So, let us understand what is this SCP model. So, to start with, that is the industry structure, number of competing firms, then homogeneity of products, it is not the heterogeneity, it is the homogeneity of products, then the cost of entry and exit that limits the industry structure. For example, a shipping company, it is very difficult to enter into shipping business because the cost of ships and its fleet is very expensive, and at the same time also, even if they are willing to exit due to various reasons, including when they are not making enough money, or if it is not turned out to be a profitable one, and for them it is very difficult to exit out of the business because you have to find buyers for such large fleets, and that involves huge amount of capital expenditure. Then coming to the conduct, that is the firm conduct. So, the strategies firms pursue to gain competitive advantage. So, we have been always repeatedly talking about the attaining the competitive advantage and sustaining it. So, if a firms all exist to attain the competitive advantage. If a firm is not attaining a CA, so then it is as good as they not exist, or they do not have relevance in the industry. So, how a firm is going to conduct or achieve its competitive advantage? So, coming back to the performance of a firm. So, it is at the firm level, the competitive disadvantage, the competitive parity, temporary or sustained competitive advantage. Then it is also related to society, productive and allocative efficiency, then level of employment, and what is the progress that it is contributing to the society in terms of GDP or in terms of upliftment of societal aspirations and ambitions. So, this is the SCP model. So, then let us understand Michael E., the phenomenal work that has been done or carried out by Michael E. Porters. So, it is the most of the strategy students are very much aware about the competition framework developed by Porter, Michael E. Porter. So, there is a saying that if a student of strategy does not know about this 5 forces model, so it is as good as that he does not know about this strategy itself. So, this model is applied to understand the industry attractiveness or the industry dynamics of any given industry, right. So, the Michael E. Porter of Harvard University suggested this model in his work published in Harvard Business Review in 1979 article that how competitive forces shape strategy. it is 1979. So, how competitive forces shape strategy. So, this is the seminal work carried out by five forces model as still in a relevant even after close to 40 years and all, 44 years and all. So, the five forces framework is a method of analyzing operating environment of a competitive nature of business. It draws from the industrial organization, that is IO economics, to derive five forces that determine the competitive intensity and therefore the attractiveness or lack of attractiveness of an industry in terms of its profitability. So, basically it talks about two things, the attractiveness levels or the competitive intensity and profitability. This model consists of those forces close to a company that affects its ability to serve its customers and make a profit. So, Porter's five forces include three forces: horizontal competition, that is a threat of substitute products or services, the threat of established rivals and the threat of new entrants, and two others, that is the vertical competition, the bargaining power of suppliers and the bargaining power of buyers. The Porter developed his five forces framework in reaction to the then popular SWOT analysis, that is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats analysis, which he found both lacking in rigor and ad hoc. So, but the SWOT analysis focuses on something, and this five forces analysis focuses on industry aspect. Let us understand, so what is this five forces model and how it makes a impact in analyzing the industry. So, to start with the threat of new entrants, so then the industry rivalry and the threat of substitutes, then the bargaining power of, so these are the horizontal forces: threat of new entrants, industry rivalry and threat of substitutes, and the vertical one, the bargaining power of suppliers and bargaining power of buyers. So, later on, so one more force has been added, that is complementers. Of course, it is not the original model framework that has been defined by the Michael E. Porter. So, this complementers talks about the suppliers of complements create value for the industry and can exercise the bargaining power. The best example for complementers you can give is the hardware vendors of IT and the software providers of IT. Like Microsoft always comes out with the newer variants to suit the chipsets developed by Intel. So, both act as a complementer. So, the chipset maker like Intel, they developed new generation chipsets to suit the new generation of the software developed by the Microsoft. So, let us understand, so what are these factors and how it determines the competition structure and how it determines the competition in a given industry. To start with the threat of entrants or new entrants, the first one is capital requirements, then economies of scale, absolute cost advantage, product differentiation, supplier qualification, access to distribution channels, legal or regulatory barriers and retaliatory moves a competitor can take. Then coming to the industry rivalry, first let us discuss the horizontal forces, then we will focus on the vertical forces like supplier power and buyer power. The second component in horizontal force is industry rivalry, that is pertaining to seller concentration, then diversity of competitors, product differentiation, access capacity and exit barriers, cost conditions, market growth rates. Then the last one in the horizontal forces, that is substitute competition, buyers' propensity to substitute, then relative prices and performance of substitutes. Coming to the bargaining power of supplier power, the supplier concentration and its the supplier's strategic importance vis-a-vis to the buyers. Then coming to the buyer power, the buyer's price sensitivity, the relative bargaining power, size and concentration, vertical integration and buyer's information. So, now let us understand how these forces, how these factors determine the competition and in turn profitability in an industry. So, to start with the first one is the threat of new entrants. So, on the one hand you are seeing what are the various factors. Here how entry barriers affect the transaction with the customer. To prevent entry, firms in the industry may reduce price. If they reduce price, so they have to offer less value, and if they increase price, so then they have to offer the lesser thing. Now, so entrants' threats to industry profitability depends upon the height of barriers to entry. So, height in the sense like you create virtual things that somebody, here height means it is not the compound where they will build the huge compound and allow not to enter into that one. No, it is not like that. So, it is, so you create such a barriers where the competitors will find it very difficult to enter it. So, the principal sources of barriers to entry are, the first one is capital requirements. So, let us understand how these capital requirements will limit or will stop the new entrants coming into the particular market. For example, so to develop a globally recognized or globally accredited in a car or certified car, so a company has to spend nearly $1.5 billion, and it takes anywhere between 2.5 to 3.5 years time. So, you should competitor has got the significant resources in terms of money as well as time. So, to develop a car they need almost $1.5 billion. So, that is why, so we have seen like the Maruti's the very popular Baleno model is easily replicated by Toyota in the name of Glanza, because they cannot afford to invest so much of money in the heavily crowded market. Then if you look at the large aircraft, that is the Airbus 380, so it took it costed them almost $15 billion to develop Airbus 380. Of course, in terms of large aircraft we have got only two competitors, two players in the segment, one is Airbus and another is Boeing. Of course, Boeing will not keep quiet, they will also invest the considerable amount to match the standards or the product features of Airbus 380, but they have to invest a similar amount of the same money, almost $14–15 billion to match the kind of product that has been developed by Airbus. So, here the huge capital requirements either in terms of aircraft manufacturer or a globally renowned car maker. So, this capital requirement limits the new entrants to come in. So, if you apply the same thing, what happens if your capital requirements comes down drastically in a same industry? So, for example, the cars that used to run by diesel and petrol, now they have been rapidly being replaced by the electric vehicles. So, there is a lesser requirement of capital compared to the engines that have been developed for the diesel and petrol variants. So, that is why even if you take the two-wheeler segment of electric manufacturers, you will find so many new players coming into it because of the lesser capital requirements and lesser complications or lesser technology requirements and lesser components compared to that of the petrol scooters or petrol two-wheelers. Then economies of scale. So, after having invested $1.5 billion in a car, new model car, they have to achieve, so they have to sell at least or produce 3 million pieces, 3 million cars a year. That is very difficult in such a hugely crowded in a market. It is very difficult to sell 3 million cars of the same model across the globe, so that they can recover that money where they have invested close to $1.5 billion. And if you take the same amount of investment that has been made by Airbus 380 after having invested $15 billion to produce that model, they have to sell 400 Airbus 380 aircrafts, and that is very difficult, because by the time they reach that model, that kind of the aircrafts, the new product might have come into the market, either by the same or the retaliatory move being initiated by Boeing. Then the third barrier is absolute cost disadvantages, absolute cost advantages enjoyed by certain entrants, that is certain operators, the low cost resources, the low cost sources of raw materials. Like if say let us take the example of Tata Steel or Steel Authority of India Limited, that is SAIL, they enjoy the absolute cost advantages compared to other steel makers, because they have acquired the captive mines that they use it only for producing their own steel, rather than depending on third party iron ore supplier, where it is very difficult to achieve that kind of cost advantage. If they have their own captive mines, so for them it is very easy to achieve cost advantages and attain some sort of leadership as far as the costs are concerned. So, that increases the burden on their, that decreases the burden on their profitability ratio. So, if they have their own captive mines, or they need not depend on the others for supply of either coal or iron ore, so they enjoy this one. So, the same case, absolute cost advantages can be also applied to the power generator, like either KPCL or whoever it is. So, if they have their own the source of coal production, for them it becomes very easy, and their cost of power generation will be much lesser than that of competitors who are dependent on coal from somebody else. Then the product differentiation, so that is 61% in toothpaste and 71% in cigarette. So, we all know, so unless somebody has got the differentiated product, it is very difficult for them to sell in the market. So, it is all said time and again that differentiate or die. So, we have so many brands of toothpaste available. One says that do you have salt, do you have the clove, do you have the ilachi, and do you have the herbal mix and all sorts of things. But even in terms of the whole thing, even after that one, even after attaining so much of differentiation, so the 61% of toothpaste are in the same, because it is hardly any differentiation that is left out. And even the same case is with the cigarettes, that is 71% of only in terms of packaging, in terms of the feeling, in terms of the pleasure which they perceive that they get is almost similar. So, the product differentiation is very important. so that they can stop the new entrants to come into the market. Then the next point is the access to channels of distribution. So, FMCG companies enjoy the huge distribution network right across the length and breadth of a market. Say for example, India, the Hindustan Unilever Limited HUL, and HUL enjoys huge, it is one of India's the leading FMCG company, that is fast moving consumer goods company, where they have got the excellent distribution network right across from the remote village to the metro cities. So, whatever the products that they launch, so it reaches to the markets, the deepest or the remotest market within no time. So, it is very easy for them to reach because they have built such a huge network, a distribution network right across India. So, for a new entrant, for a new FMCG players, it takes a lot of time and efforts. They have to invest in a considerable amount, to invest huge resources to reach to the remotest corner of the village. So, this is the biggest advantage FMCG has got. Otherwise, it is very easy to replicate or make a new variant of soap, new variant of toothpaste, new variant of detergent powder, new variant of any other product. It is very easy, but how do you reach the end user? It is very tough. So, this is where the existing players or the established players enjoy the advantage, or they have the edge or lead over other players. Then supplier qualification. So, standards are set by buyers. So, in terms of say for example, the wind turbines produced by certain. So, globally there are few firms they produce wind turbines. So, buyers set higher expectations. So, in terms of buying certain wind equipment, wind turbines and wind equipment and all. So, what they say to limit the competition. So, they set the highest standards that can be met only by the top players in the industry. So, otherwise the market is flooded by the low cost providers and the quality providers and the high cost service providers and product offerings and all. So, sometimes standards set by buyers will be so high, where the majority of the players will find it very difficult to maintain such standards. And that also happens in terms of the large highway projects and all. The NHAI, that is National Highway Authorities of India Limited, when they award the road building contracts, so that they set a highest standards, so that they want to give it only to the buyers or the suppliers who have got the highest qualification, or has got the best equipment and has got the efficient administration and all those things, so that they can execute it at the lesser period of time. Then coming to the legal and regulatory barriers, the mobile phones. So, the legal and regulatory barriers are set by the mobile phone service providers, especially the government. So, when they allocate, so anybody cannot start a new mobile phone services, because they have to buy the spectrum from the government, and in case if they have to buy, they have to participate in the spectrum auction by the government and bid the auction and get the exclusive thing, so that others cannot operate in that particular band of a spectrum. So, the legal and regulatory barriers and the entry, and sometimes the government imposes highest amount of the caution money or EMD amount, like 100 crores, 500 crores and all. So, that limits the small players, and that limits the competition in the business space. So, coming to the retaliation, that is normally soft drink providers like Pepsi and Coca-Cola, they are the global players, and if a Pepsi offers some brand, some variant like the new lime variant within a short period of days, within a month or so, Coke will also come out, Coca-Cola will also come out with the similar variant that can match the product features that have been offered by the Pepsi. So, retaliatory move is very fast, but that also depends on how quickly retaliatory moves can be initiated by the competitors. In terms of the small players, even they might also retaliatory, as a part of a retaliatory move, they might also introduce the new variants of soft drinks in the market, but that should reach or that should compete within the same space. So, only the large players can get into such kind of thing. So, these are the threat of new entrants based on the various the heights of barriers that is created. Then we will move on to the second one, the second factor or force, that is the rivalry between established competitors. So, let us understand how this competition affects the transaction with the customer. The strong competition can either increase the cost associated with the higher value, or can increase value and reduce the price. So, this is possible. So, the rivalry between established competitors or established players, that shows the extent to which industry profitability is depressed by aggressive price competition, depends on so many factors, that is concentration, diversity of competitors, product differentiation, excess capacity and exit barriers, and market growth rates, cost conditions. Let us understand what is this concentration. The number and the size of distribution of firms. So, let us take in the high performance cells, we have got only the two players, one is Duracell and another is Energizer. Of course, there are many players who operate in the same space, but Duracell and Energizer operate in a high performance cell, like toys or cameras, they require high performance cell compared to that of the other manufacturers who focus only on the low end products, like where they use such products in the wall clocks and other small things. So, the concentration and the large number of the firms determines the profitability. If there are more number of the players, then the profitability would reduce. So, the lesser the concentration, higher the profitability. Higher the concentration of firms, lesser the profitability. Then diversity of competitors. So, in the previous class we have seen in the automobile space, especially in the car makers, the difference in goals, cost structure. So, the cars are available right from 5 to 6 lakhs to 1.5 crores, 3 crores, 4 crores and all. So, every 60-70,000 rupees, if a person is ready to invest additionally or spend more, so they will get a new variant either belonging to the same brand or some other brand. So, there is a diversity of competitors, and their goals and cost structures vary from one another. Then coming to the product differentiation in agriculture and products and consulting services. Agriculture products, wherever you go, that remains same, whether it is a wheat, rice, that remains same, and there is a lesser amount of differentiation compared to that of the consulting services provided by McKinsey, Bain Consulting and others. So, here the consulting services provided by company, that they offer in terms of their brand and appeal, their reach, their goodwill. So, that will have the product differentiation. So, you are seeing the exact the two extremes of agriculture, commodities and consulting services, where here the product differentiation is very less and here the product differentiation is more. Then coming to another the factor, that is excess capacity and exit barriers. So, the cargo shipping rates. So, cargo shipping rates, so the rates are determined by the global players depending upon the capacity that is available, existing capacity. Sometimes what happens due to the glut in the global economy or the slowdown in economy, the movement of goods becomes slow. So, that puts a pressure on the cargo shipping rates. Even if a shipping company would like to exit from the business, it is very difficult, because it is very difficult to sell, and even if they want to sell, there will be no buyers. So, it also depends on the rivalry of like the existing the players or the competitors. So, what is the capacity and exit barriers. So, if you have so that is why the rates would vary very dramatically, because there is it's very, although there is no regulatory barrier to get into shipping business, but due to the high cost structures or capital structures, it is very difficult for somebody to get into the business, and they need to have a large fleet of cargo ships, and they cannot have one or two. So, in that in case if they want to have a large fleet, they have to invest considerable amount. So, that also depends the competition. Then the market growth rates, how the market is moving. So, what are the growth rates? Is it moving very rapidly or is it moving very slowly? That determines the rivalry in the space. Then the last point here is the cost conditions, that is the extent of scale economies, how quickly either they can increase the production or decrease the production and reduce the competition in the available space, and what is the ratio of fixed to variable cost. In case if a competitor, if the existing competitor has got the high fixed cost and lesser variable cost, so then they will have a lesser propensity to vary the price, because first they have to recover the fixed cost and then focus on the variable cost. In case if they have a less fixed cost and high variable cost, so then they can play the way they want. So, this affects the competition, and that could lead to the either increase in the value to the customer by focusing on the increased price, or reduce the price and can increase cost associated with higher value. So, in case if they have a strong competition, so that all depends on the various factors pertaining to it. So, now let us understand the threat of substitutes. So, this is the extent of competitive pressure coming from producers of substitutes depends upon basically three things: buyers' propensity to substitute, the price performance characteristics of substitutes, then substitutes to replace existing products. So, how substitutes affect the transaction with the customer? So, that is increase the value required to compete, that is powerful substitutes, the lower the price required to compete. So, this is all associated with either with the cost and price and how it creates value to the buyer. Let us understand the buyer's propensity to substitute. For example, if you have a car, that is a diesel car, you cannot substitute diesel with petrol. You have to pour diesel into your car to run. And the same way, of course, diesel and cigarettes cannot be compared, but the cigarette smokers hardly switch from one brand to another, because they will have so much affiliation to their own the brand. They will not move from X brand to Y brand, and they will stick on to the, even if it is offered by the same company, but still they will not move. If somebody wants Gold Flake, they will stick on only to Gold Flake. They will not move on to the Wheels or somebody else. And even though they will have a substitute like BDs, they will not switch over, because they pursue that they get some kind of the pleasure that they get only from consuming particular brand of cigarette. So diesel and cigarette compared to that of newspapers and telecom. If you don't get the Hindu newspaper, you will have Deccan Herald, the Times of India and others. So you have the easy substitutes available compared to that one. And if BSNL is not providing good telecom services, you always have a choice to switch over from BSNL to Jio or Airtel or any other operator, and you don't need to be so brand loyal like the cigarettes and other things. So the extent of competitive pressure from producers of substitutes depends on buyer's propensity to substitute. In this case, it is not possible to substitute, and here it is possible, but the buyer will not substitute. The second one is price performance characteristics of substitutes. So if coffee becomes expensive, people will easily switch over to tea, because it is a hot beverage. Unless they are very much lover of coffee and all. So coffee as a substitute of tea, or green tea or the regular tea and all. And even if you have the compared with the glasses with contact glasses, right. So glasses, if somebody does not like the wearing glasses in case of their eye problem and all, they can always go for the contact lenses, provided they have the huge pockets. So look at this one, the contact lenses available between 3 to 5,000 rupees and all, whereas the glasses are available in the price range of 300 to 500,000 rupees and all. So the contact lenses are at least 3 times, 4 times expensive than the regular glasses. But if somebody is looking at the performance, like they want the good appeal, and they don't want to see that the glasses being worn and all, so then they can switch over. So that is the substitute. So the book, if somebody is not willing to carry the regular physical book, they can always switch over to the e-book, where they can download and carry it in their laptop or mobile phone or tabs and read whenever they want. And it offers so convenience compared to the regular print version of book. Then substitutes to replace existing products. So we all started with listening music through records way back in early 60s, 70s, and afterwards we moved on to the tape recorders. Okay. Then again we moved from tapes to recorded tapes to the compact discs. So compact disc to the DVDs, although they looked like same, but the performance between CDs and DVDs was phenomenal, at least 10 times better compared to that of tapes and records. But substitutes to replace existing products. So once we are moved on to the DVDs, we will not again come back to tapes or records, right. So this is the various the factors that the substitutes will offer. Now Now let us understand the bargaining power of buyers. It is on the vertical axis of the model. So, we have got two forces here, the bargaining power of buyers and bargaining power of suppliers. So, the relative bargaining power. So, again that the powerful buyers will increase the value required to compete, or they might reduce the price required to compete. So, either if they reduce the the value, so then they will have a cost advantage. In case if they increase, so then they will have the higher value. So, what are the factors pertaining to bargaining power of buyers? The first one is size and concentration of buyers relative to sellers. Okay. See, if you take the defense equipment, there are more number of buyers than the sellers, right. So, the defense equipment, so the companies like Lockheed Martin, Dassault Systems and all. So, they the buyers are less, and the concentration is also less compared to that of this one. So, they will have the better the price negotiating abilities with the buyers, because their size and concentration is less. It is not the buyers who select the sellers, it is the buyers who decide whom to sell, at what rate to sell, because the size and concentration is less. Then the second one is buyer's information, that is the dentist charges. So, normally when we visit a hospital, now the government made it mandatory that they should exhibit the list of charges that a doctor or the clinic offers, that charges for a particular kind of services, right. So, buyer will have some cases the information, in some cases because the doctor will tell depending upon the problem that the patient has got. So, the buyer will have the bargaining power, and if is not happy with that one, and if a buyer feels that yes this doctor dentist is charging more, so he will move on to the some other doctor, because the easily available of dentist. Then the third one is undifferentiated and standard products. Undifferentiated and standard products, where the buyers will have a lesser bargaining power, because there is no product differentiation as far as the commodities are concerned. Like when we take salt, right, the salts are normally it is a commodity widely consumed, and it has got lesser differentiation because of its of course now there are so many variants which has come, the low sodium salt, the crystal salt, or then iodine content salt, then rock salt, the pink salt, the black salt, and all those things of course. But the undifferentiated, and even if you take the broomstick, so earlier broomsticks were almost unbranded, now also there is a differentiation started in selling the broomsticks also. So, the buyer will have the very lesser bargaining power, because the products which are offered by the so many manufacturers or the sellers would be almost same, other than the packaging and brand name. Then the last point here is ability to backward integrate. So, food processing always threaten the sellers of the fruits, like the farmers and all. So, once the food processing companies, they feel that there is enough business, they always say that I will also buy farmland and start growing fruits and vegetables to make it convenient for processing the this product, whether it is a juice, a squash, jams or whatever. So, sometimes buyers threaten suppliers, they threatening that they will either move backward or forward to source the either the commodity or the sell the product, end product. Then the last factor or force in the 5 forces is the bargaining power of suppliers. So, this how supplier power affects the transaction with the customer. So, powerful supplier decrease the value and the firm enjoys, and in some cases they increase cost in case if they have the cost advantage. So, suppliers here in this force, suppliers set the baseline for the input cost of a firm. For example, supplier concentration, the first one is number and size distribution of firms. For example, we have De Beers. De Beers is the world's largest supplier of diamonds. They got the captive mines in Africa, Kimberley and all. So, they sell almost 80% of the diamonds produced in the world, the natural diamonds, not the artificial one. So, the De Beers has got the ability to influence the price and create its own market, because there are other inner suppliers, although they enjoy although there are very few numbers and their concentration is also less. First is that they enjoy almost 80% of the market share, and the supplier concentration is also less. The number and size of distribution of firms is less. So, De Beers can always fix the price of diamonds and enjoy, because there is no competition for the natural diamond. Hardly, even if there is a competition, there is very less, and it will hardly make any impact on De Beers. Then the second one is highly differentiated products. Intel offers highly differentiated products, and even in the micro the chips which they make, the microchips which they make, which is absolutely, they enjoy almost 80 to 90% of the market share, and due to their this one presence in the market, they also offer a highly differentiated market and fix the price. And the third one is suppliers are not threatened by substitutes. So, in the software industry, Microsoft of course it sells, but the Linux services provided by Linux is free of cost, it is a open source one. So, of course there are only two players, even both of them are not bothered by the any supplier who is willing to enter into the market, because hardly there are no substitutes as of now. There are no substitutes for Microsoft versus Linux. One operates in a free space and another operates in a this. Then the last point here is suppliers threaten backward integration. The software the vendors threaten to venture into start making the hardware, and hardware manufacturers always threaten to get into software. Like Intel, with which manufactures the chips, microchips and all, they always say that we will also get into the software development business, so we no longer require Microsoft and all, and Microsoft is also good enough to get into the hardware business and retaliatory move, but rarely they do it, because they know it is the complementers that create value, not the competition. So far we have discussed the 5 forces of the model, how it affects the competition and how it determines the competition in a given industry. Thank you.